Live from beyond the Beltway, this is Bruce DuMont with our weekly analysis of national politics, all offered up by our panel of political insiders, pundits, power brokers, public servants, and most importantly, plain-speaking Americans from coast to coast. Tonight, featuring commentary by conservative Rosanna Polito, liberal Julia Klein, libertarian presidential candidate Joe Jorgensen, conservative Judith Sherwin, and liberal Coco Sudek. Our program tonight coming to you from the studios of WCGO in beautiful Evanston, Illinois. That's just north of the city of Chicago. Happy Father's Day to you. I lost my father many, many years ago, but I still think of him every day. And, of course, I am the father of one beautiful daughter and 4 great grandchildren. They're hopefully listening to the program and watching it this evening. We've got a great show, 2 hours. We have just so much to pack into 2 hours tonight because so much has happened. And I want to begin by welcoming our first guests in hour number 1. Julia Klein is a progressive or a liberal, and she is an author, and she's been a guest on this program before, as has Rosanna Polito, and she's been very active in the illegal immigration fight for many, many years. In fact, I say this on Father's Day. We're going to have all female. This is an all-female show tonight. And I wanted to start off with Julia and also with Rosanna because they're on opposite sides of the political spectrum, but each of them has a burning passion for their subject. Me Too is a huge issue for Julia, and illegal immigration is a huge issue for Rosanna. We've been doing shows for maybe 15 years on that subject. So each comes with a unique passion, and we'll talk about the specific of those differing passions as the program unfolds this evening. But Rosanna, I want to start with you because the publicity last night was all about the president's big rally in Tulsa. It wasn't quite as big as other rallies he's had. But as someone who I assume listened to much of what the president said, did he spend too much time trying to rallying the base and is missing opportunities to reach out to those that maybe might be for him, but maybe they need a little less red meat than he throws out?
I believe that the base needed some coddling, needed to be rallied just because of what we're going through right now with COVID. People are just exhausted. And to just have a love fest, I think was a great thing.
Does it disturb you that even though there appears to be an opportunity for extra space in that auditorium last night, they could have practiced social distancing and maybe they would have gotten some perks for that as opposed to showing empty seats?
Well, no, the media would have made something bad out of anything there. It really didn't make any difference. They did try to give masks to people who wanted them, hand sanitizer. They did everything they could to make it people feel safer. And they did what they did. It was like having a protest.
Okay, Julia, let me
6 feet apart.
I'm going to turn to Julia and find out, because I know there wasn't anything that the president said last night or could have said last night that would have changed your opinion. But looking at the Democratic side, and you have some criticism of Joe Biden, which we will get to, but there are some who believe that Joe Biden can win this thing just by sitting in his basement. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think a palm tree would win.
Okay. So the fact that he is not out greeting people, you think that strategy will get him to the White House?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I think this is going to be an election all about negative partisanship. Through my eyes, the majority of the country has been salivating for 3 years to cast a vote against this guy. So there's nothing that either side can do to do much to change that. The only way that we can cinch the victory is to make sure that we increase turnout among populations that often don't turn out as high numbers, young people and people of color. But they're already showing that they're highly motivated. They're going to come out. It's going to be a real landslide. Of course, assuming that it's a fair and free election, which we have no reason to think that it will be.
Do you agree with Senator Amy Klobuchar, who took herself out of the vice presidential race, even though, frankly, I don't think she was in it? Do you think that it should be and must be a woman of color at this moment in time?
It definitely has to be a woman. Whether or not it has to be a woman of color, I don't think so. And for a long time, I was absolutely insisting that it had to be, that it would be an embarrassment to ask the American people, the Democratic Party, to vote for an all-white ticket yet again.
Right.
However, many of my African-American brothers and sisters have been talking about the fact that they don't share that view, that they find that what's important to them is a candidate who has a platform of policies that's going to be positive for the African-American population. And there's an awful lot of Black folks that would love to see Elizabeth Warren as the vice president. I would love to see Elizabeth Warren at the top of the ticket.
You were a fan of Elizabeth Warren's from the get-go. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, I still am. I'm a Warren Democrat for life.
For those that may not have known or heard your previous appearances on this program, you've been a fan of hers, so it doesn't surprise me that you at least keep her alive. But let me ask the question to Rosanna. Rosanna, since this appears to be one of the big issues left for the Democrats, and I know you normally don't weigh in on their side, do you think that having a woman of color, do you think that it would increase support for the Democratic nominee with African-American women, or do you think that the presence of an African-American woman would increase support for those that support the president?
Actually, I think people are yearning for somebody who is qualified. Look at what the Michigan governor has done. I think that Democrats have really had enough of her, too. So I think somebody who can prove they have great leadership qualities and will put the people first is going to go a long way.
Okay. On your pet topic now, let me ask, is the recent decision of the Supreme Court on the Daca decision. The president tried last night to say that was a big victory for him because all he has to do is go back and change the paperwork. Do you see it that simply?
Absolutely. It has been said, I even read an article with Politico that said, and Obama said that what he did was unconstitutional. He was very upfront about it. So the Supreme Court pretty much said, you did not cross your T's and dot your I's. Do that, come back. And yes, he is absolutely correct that it was a victory for him. Although I have to say this. In 2007, Trump put forward a bill that would have given amnesty to Daca plus double the amount of
in
people.
2007, he wasn't president. 2017.
2017.
Okay, that's right.
2017. So, but what happened is Congress didn't want to touch it because they didn't want to give him a win. We also have to remember
that's not true. That's not
Obama had the majority, and he didn't do anything to give them amnesty because it's a very unpopular issue.
Okay, when we come back, Julie has a difference of opinion on your assessment. When we come back, we're going to hear Julia's side of this discussion, and we're going to open it up, obviously, to the audience as well. 1-800-723-8029. We're going to talk about illegal immigration. There hasn't been much talk about it lately. We're going to talk about how important it is to the president's reelection, and also the myriad of other issues that seem to have really pushed illegal immigration to the back of the political burner. I'm Bruce DuMont from coast to coast, border to border, and around the world at BeyondTheBeltway.com. Thanks for joining us tonight.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
A line is a powerful thing. It connects the global economy to your living room. Cleaner air to stronger markets. Factory floors to less crowded roads. Today's progress to tomorrow's promise. Norfolk Southern. One line, infinite possibilities.
Bruce DuMont back on Beyond the Beltway. Happy Father's Day. Thanks for joining us tonight. Before the break, Julia Klein was going to jump in and make a clarifying point about something that Rosanna had said. Go ahead, Julia.
Yeah, Rosanna made the point that Trump tried to end DACA in 2017, and that's just crazy. He's an incessant flip-flopper. I mean, he maybe made the statement, but within 48 hours, he had rescinded it because Stephen Miller or one of the other advisors in his cabinet is pushing for a racist immigration policies, and jumped all over him like, oh no, you can't do that. So Trump himself has again, maybe literally uttered the words once, but it doesn't matter. It's not like he was in favor of ending DACA at any point in time. And to suggest that it would have happened if it were not for Congress is just ludicrous. It's a complete rewriting of history. That's not even close to what happened.
Rosanna,
to the extent that it was ever put before Congress, it was only contingent upon having a border wall included with it. And Congress was always unwilling to say that we're going to have a border wall in exchange for allowing these people who have never known another country and who are contributing citizens of this country, or residents of this country. We're not going to exchange that for this horrible idea of a border wall, for crying out loud.
Okay, let me just interject here and try to keep the conversation flowing, but going back and forth and making sure everybody gets a chance. I want to go back to you, Rosanna, and say, and by the way, I said at the beginning, you and I have been discussing this issue for at least 10 years, maybe longer on this program.
Yes.
And again, I congratulate you that you're one of the few people who's been a longtime guest on this program. You saw your political dream come true because you were out there when no one on earth was talking about this subject, and along comes a candidate who gets elected president of the United States. Okay, he's been the president for 3 years now. Are you happy because in your mind has a lot been done on this issue, or do you think he's giving you lip service and not giving you real answers?
Well, his record is not perfect, that's for sure. We do have more border wall, and I was at the border 3 times, and that is surely needed.
Right.
And especially right now in COVID, there are few jobs, and Americans and legal residents need to have those jobs. So he's talking about, curtailing visas, and we're thrilled with that. But of course, no, as far as I'm concerned, and a lot of my friends who have been on the illegal immigration issue since 2005, no, we're not perfectly happy, but I was on the border and George Bush called me a vigilante.
Right.
So between then and now,
right,
there hasn't been a lot of choice.
Right,
so,
now,
I'll take the crumbs.
Okay, good. I want to come back. I want to follow up on that, but I want to go over to Julia's pet issue at the moment, or not just for the moment, for many, many years, and that's the Me Too movement. You have riled up a lot of Democrats. You and I are Facebook friends. We share a lot of Facebook friends. There's a lot of people that are really ticked off at you because you tend to believe and want to hear the story of Tara Reade, who was a guest on this program a few weeks ago, as were you. And you're concerned because you don't think that Joe Biden gets the importance of the Me Too movement. I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth, but you're a frustrated Democrat. You're not really enthused about Joe Biden. Is that correct?
Yeah, all of that's correct. I would only say it's not that I want to hear Tara Reade. We have all heard Tara Reade.
Right.
She spoke for herself. Megyn Kelly gave her a platform. We've heard her story. I think it's credible. And whether I don't think that it's essential to believe Tara Reade in order to recognize that Joe Biden's behavior with women has been problematic. And I think that a long time ago, Joe Biden's behavior regarding race relations was also problematic. However, it certainly seems as though spending 8 years alongside Barack Obama has caused him to undergo some real personal transformation. And I believe, and I can't speak for other Democrats, and certainly not my brothers and sisters of color, but Black women and men in this country, but I believe that Joe Biden has some fundamental, authentic, visceral transformations regarding his views on race. And it's a real shame to me that he has not had anyone in his life that has caused him to do the same thing around how he treats women, because it's problematic. It's problematic.
Do you believe that there's been any degree of hypocrisy on your side of the political spectrum. I don't mean you personally. That so many women were irate about Kavanaugh and all of the Kavanaugh accusers, and they have been less than willing to give Tara Reade a fair shake.
Yes, I do believe there's been hypocrisy. However, it's not the hypocrisy that the right often wants to point to, and it's not the hypocrisy that you just named. It's because Tara Reade is, in fact, a far more problematic witness than Christine Blasey Ford, just as an example. I think it's unquestionable that Christine Blasey Ford is telling the truth, has always been telling the truth. And and she is a highly credible witness. And so it is a lot. And there's never been the fluctuations in her story, and there was never any problematic nature as to when she brought her allegations forth, as there is with Tara Reade. So I do understand some of people's saying that Tara Reade is not as credible of a witness. So I want to ask, however. The point where there is the hypocrisy is that the argument that has been made against Tara Reade is pulling out all the tropes that are damaging to survivors of sexual assault across the board. People have harangued on the fact that she doesn't remember all the details. She doesn't know what year it was. She didn't tell anybody at the time. All of these things are true of people, women and men, because not only women who suffer sexual assault, people who are survivors of sexual assault. It's often part of the pattern, part of the trauma that they don't tell people, that they keep it a secret, that they engage in problematic behavior afterwards. And so all of these accusations against Tara Reade that she did those things and therefore she must be lying has done a terrible disservice to all the progress we've made for victims over the last 10 years.
Okay, I think you made your point. Let's go to calls. Let's go to Heidi, who's listening to us in Houston, Texas. Go ahead, Heidi.
Hi, first-time caller here.
Thank you.
Comments about DACA.
Yeah.
And I think DACA is not only illegal, but it's very unfair, and it's also an amnesty. And I want to bring out a point that's never
unfair to whom?
I'll tell you how
unfair to whom.
It's unfair to U.S. citizens. And check this out.
Okay.
What about the U.S. children whose parents are in the jails? When does the government ever come in and reward them? When do they get in-state discount tuition like the DACA recipients do? Okay, and if the U.S. children, or if the poor kids, whose U.S. kids whose parents have broken the law and they're sitting in a jail, if they can't get any type of benefits like the DACA people, any type of reward or in-state tuition, then it shouldn't be granted. You see, the whole problem with DACA is that this was the parents' fault, and they knew coming in here what they were doing. It's all about amnesty, because when the child, these aren't even children anyway, but when they become 18, they can petition to bring in their parents legally. They can already stay because, how do I say this?
Heidi, let me ask you a couple of questions, and then I want to let our guests also weigh in. But do you see in the under the broad umbrella of illegal immigration and how we deal with it, do you see the DACA group, no matter how large it may be, do you see them as unique? In other words, they're not the same people who sneak into the country and who have survived here or are going from city to city trying to survive looking for a job. Do you think that they are different because they have been here a long time?
No, I do not.
You do not?
I do not.
Do you? No, but do you?
They have had some of these people. The average age is about 23. They've had all this time to become citizens, and they decided not to, because they get more benefits from our government for being illegal.
All right,
they've done nothing.
Hang on just a second.
Jack nothing.
I want to ask Julia her opinion on this. Julia, do you see a difference between a DACA, someone within the DACA population, and someone who just sneaks into the country because they're looking for a better job? Are they different people in your mind?
Yes, and all of them should be granted citizenship. All of them.
Okay, that's going to the next step. But I want to go better, Rosanna. Do you see them in as one pot of people, or do you see them? Is there a difference to the Daca people, Rosanna?
Yes, the law was broken, and the law needs to be enforced.
The law was broken by their parents. Would you acknowledge that?
Correct.
If they are now adults, should they be punished for the mistake of their parents?
Well, just like African Americans are asking for reparations for something that our ancestors did in the 17th century, we have then the right to ask the law be enforced on the people who violated our laws.
But you're conflating an issue, which is they're both very complex issues. You're conflating them, which makes it almost impossible to find common ground. So my question to you is, if indeed, and Heidi made this comment, I'll come back to you. Heidi, you made the point is, okay, there are people that break our laws. Let's as you said, there may be African Americans or white people who break the law. Their children don't end up going to prison because the parents broke the law. But my question to you is, should the parents, should the children of those parents who broke the law many years ago, should those children be punished for the sins of their parents? I need a 10-second answer. Go ahead, Heidi.
Yes, I believe that they need to be unified with their parents. They need to be sent home, deported.
When we come back, we're going to let Rosanna defend that position. I'm Bruce DuMont, back shortly from Evanston, Illinois.
Here's how you can make your own face covering in a few easy steps with items you can find around the house, like an old scarf, a bandana or a hand towel, or you can make a face covering out of an old t-shirt. Fold it to the middle from the bottom, fold it to the middle from the top, fold it again to the middle from the bottom, and again from the top, and then 2 rubber bands, one on one side and one on the other side. Then you fold either side to the middle, and you have yourself cloth face covering. It's that easy.
Flintstones, meet the Flintstones, they're the modern Sonic family. From the town of Beltway, meet George Jetson.
With instant acceleration, electric cars are more fun to drive and more affordable than ever. Electric cars are here. Plug in to the present.
Bruce DuMont back, and we've got a comment here coming in from Tom Hagan. He said, what parent treks their kids 500 miles up to the border? Could you imagine an American family trekking their kids cross-country along our highways? Tom, yes, I can. I think that if you are a parent and you feel that your children are not going to survive where they are and you have an economic need, you're going to go where that economic need is. And I think that's a parental thing. I know there's a lot of people don't like the idea of just taking your kids and putting them in a caravan and sending them off to the United States. That's not a good idea. But to say that parents won't try to do things that will improve the life of their kids, I think Americans would do that, and I think that those from Central America and Mexico would do the same thing. We are at the program now where one of my favorite parts of the program. I let each of our guests introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about themselves, and we're going to begin with Julia Klein. Julia, tell us who you are and what you're up to.
Yeah. My name is Julia Klein. I am a writer and a podcaster and a progressive political activist. My podcast is called Solving Me Too. As you've indicated, that's my passion project, is gender-based workplace harassment, discrimination, and assault. And and I also write about abuses of power as it relates to other issues, specifically money. So I have a couple best-selling books out. One is called The Entrepreneur's Guide to Sleaze-Free Selling. And so I talk about salesmanship as through the lens of how we use our power as it relates to money.
Okay. And Rosanna Polito, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Hi, I was born and raised in Chicago. I was at the border in 2005 with the original Minutemen, showing our government that we had a porous border. I ran for Congress in the Illinois 5th Congressional District, and I had the absolute honor of being invited by Congress to come to Washington, D.C. and address illegal immigration.
Mm-hmm. Where does that issue go next, in your view, Rosanna?
Well, with Donald Trump as my president, I believe now more than ever, he believes in America first, and I believe he's going to take the steps to do that for us.
What about Mitch McConnell?
What do you mean, what about Mitch McConnell?
Well, I mean, nothing is going to happen unless Mitch McConnell agrees with that, unless it's completely an executive order. Do you want another executive order, one that will pass muster with the Supreme Court, or do you want legislation? Legislation, we've been talking about it for 15, 20 years. Do you want to see it? And if so, do you believe that Mitch McConnell, is he on your side, or is he standing in the schoolhouse door?
He's part of the swamp, just like Lindsey Graham. They move and do things for the American people when the air hits them. So, who knows with them? But I believe that, I believe Trump is a brilliant man, and he's going to do what he can, and he can't do it by himself. The average voter needs to start getting involved politically, locally, statewide. Obviously, here in Illinois, they do.
Do you think, and again, I'm going to ask this, do you think that Donald Trump sometimes is his own worst enemy by things that he says or does?
Not at all. Okay. Not at all. If
so he is mistake-free. He is mistake-free.
No, but people want to keep bringing up what he says, what he does. Listen, Bruce, if somebody did that to us personally, we could not withstand it either. But they don't want to look at the policies. They want to look at what he tweets today. Honestly, he tweets because he has to get around the media that won't report, anything but fake news. I
think we know, and again, we probably have it on all sides that are on this program. We have, and we've had it for 39. Next week is our 40th anniversary. So we've had it for 40 years. Is that sometimes you are so in love with your candidate you can't acknowledge when they make some mistakes. Okay, but that's okay. That's okay. Julie, I want to go back to you, and because one of the points that the president made last night over and over again was that the Trump administration is for law and order. And he said that the silent majority is going to rise up. At least that's what he suggested. When you look at all the images of the looting, not the peaceful demonstrations, but the looting and the arson that has popped up in some of these disturbances around the United States, would you acknowledge that you're a little fearful of how people who may not be as politically astute as you are may be reacting to all this negative publicity, and they will like the idea of someone that's going to give them law and order?
No. First of all, the vast majority of the violence and the arson and the fires have been caused by police officers. And we know that as a point of fact.
Say that one more time. Say that one more time.
The vast majority of the violence and the fires that happened in conjunction with the George Floyd protests have been created by police officers.
What is your evidence to that?
When they shoot tear gas canisters, those things.
That is a startling allegation.
Okay. I guess that you and I read different news outlets then. I've watched 300 videos of police officers randomly attacking peaceful people for doing absolutely nothing wrong but standing there and exercising their First Amendment rights. As far as the fires go, they've shot tear gas canisters by the hundreds, and those things are hot. And when they shoot them through a window, which is what they do, then it lands on whatever it lands on inside the building that starts a fire. So the vast majority of the fires have been caused by police action.
They usually do that on the street. And again, I'm going to open it up to phone calls to respond to this. If you are a law enforcement officer or you want to respond to that allegation from Julia Klein, feel free to do so. So just to answer my question, you don't believe that the American voters that's sitting home watching TV, not as politically involved as you two women tonight, you believe that when they're home watching television, they are going to have a different response from the people who were watching TV in 1968 who became the silent majority that elected Richard Nixon. You don't think that audience exists anymore?
I think that you're drawing the wrong conclusion.
Go ahead.
I think that what happened as a result of especially white, northern, ordinary citizens watching the civil rights marches of the mid 60s and watching innocent people getting fire hosed and bitten by dogs, the result of that was that we passed civil rights legislation. And so to say that the televised hostility of police officers that from the 60s, which is continuing again today, resulted in the election of Nixon and therefore will elect. That's just a completely inaccurate conclusion.
Let me clarify what my point. You're correct that the images that were carried of predominantly Southern police departments using their power to shut down peaceful protests in the early days of the civil rights movement led to people all over the country becoming irate and becoming aware of the plight of blacks in America's South. You're absolutely correct that was an image and the result was as you have described. However, I'm talking about a different point in time. I'm talking about 1968 when there were riots following the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King and then the Democratic Convention in August of 1968. And you had demonstrations and you had other riots, including Watts and a lot of other things that were happening during that period of time. And in that particular case, it was rioting, it was looting. It was the bad side of what's happening right now. And that got a hell of a lot more television coverage, and that's where the silent majority came from. The silent majority was not referring to what happened with Alabama at the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
Okay, I understand the point you're making. So let me respond to the point that you're making.
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So the 1968 riots, I have every reason to believe the violence was caused by the police then, every bit as much as the violence is being caused by the police now. The difference is that back then we were reliant upon mainstream, or I shouldn't say mainstream, on three major news channels to carry the video of what was happening, and it was edited. Now we have the benefit of every American resident basically having a video camera in their back pocket, and so we've got video, we've got all kinds of video, and so all you need to do is do a search on Twitter and be open to looking for it. There are hundreds, and probably by now there's thousands of videos of police.
You're right. That is the big difference. That social media is a medium form. It isn't just the networks. But I will tell you, back in the 1960s, in 1968, and during that era, I was in the Illinois National Guard. It was the most activated National Guard in the United States. It was federalized by Lyndon Johnson after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. And I will tell you that what was going on in the streets is very similar to some of the things that I see now. I see it wasn't, they didn't call it Antifa or anarchy then, but you had professionals out there who were doing nothing but deliberately creating chaos. They were firing at police. They were saying horrible things to the police, and they moved to the police, and the police had to act. And what I'm saying is that when the police act, I'm talking about how America is going to react, and that's what's going to happen in November. We've got to move on. We've got to take another call. Let's go to Steve, listening to us in New London, New Hampshire, on one of our oldest affiliates, WNTK. Go ahead, Steve.
Just a few quick points. I listened to the caller, Heidi, and I think the guest name was Rosanna. And it is truly disheartening to see how little empathy that so many people in this country have for others. Whether or not they came illegally or illegally, and obviously they came illegally, they came generally as children. Yes, they're in their 20s now. Many of them are productive in society. But the idea that we would send back hundreds of thousands of kids to a place they know nothing of, who have effectively learned American culture. They are Americans, other than they may not yet be citizens.
Steve, let me interject. Steve, let me interject right now. I'm going to put you on hold. Don't go away. When we come back, I'll give Rosanna an opportunity to respond to your question, and you two can engage in conversation. I'm Bruce DuMont. Back shortly.
Dallas, St. Louis, Nashville, Tuscaloosa. All major cities to feel the destruction caused by a direct hit from a tornado. Is Chicago next? It's not a question of if, but when, and the clock is ticking. Learn what to do now at ready.illinois.gov to become tornado ready.
Back in Evanston, Illinois, we got a email here saying that they wish that Tom Roser, who for many years was a regular guest on this program, he was one of the original panel members when we went on the air, 40 years ago next week, and they said that they wish that Tom was alive because he would have corrected me about my attitude towards President Trump. So you have, and then someone else says, and you think Bruce DuMont is a never Trumper? With a big question mark. That was from Dodie. So again, we have disagreement on this, but again, we are get back to our conversation, and let us go to. Steve from New Hampshire. You were on the line, and you were making a point, and I wanted Rosanna to respond because
I'd like to make one other.
Well, let her respond to what you've said thus far, because you said that she's insensitive. So let's let her tackle that one. Go ahead.
He actually said I have no empathy. Yeah. I reserve my empathy when I consider that Illinois, for instance, spends $4 billion a year on free services for illegal aliens. My empathy goes to veterans who don't get the services they need. They fought for the country. Senior citizens have built the country. That's where my empathy is, that they have to mortgage their homes to send their kids to school. And it seems like the illegal aliens get a free pass. So I do have a lot of empathy for my fellow Americans.
Go ahead, Steve.
Can I answer? First of all, that is a non-answer. We in this country, we have plenty of money to solve our needs if we were willing to spend it. Second thing is, from an economic point of view, these hundreds of thousands of kids, we have a declining population in this country. And without immigration, we will be in the path of other countries that are also facing a declining population, which will definitely hurt our economic well-being. So these kids have been trained, they've been grown up in America, went to school, they're in the armed forces, they are not everybody, of course, they're valedictorians, they are providing service to our country. It is no fault of theirs that they were brought here when they were 1 year old, 6 months old, 2 years old. And if they were brought here, the reality is most of those people came for economic opportunity, and where were the penalties on employers? Go to look at the chicken farms in the South and find out when they rounded up illegal aliens or illegals there, they didn't go after the owners of the chicken farms. It's just a false idea. It is a narrow-minded, xenophobic idea of keeping America the way it was. Well, America is no longer the way it is. It is better. And
Sir,
let's go back to Rosanna. Let's go to Rosanna.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Sir, I am a Latina. So, no, I think it's about caring for our fellow Americans. Listen, nobody wants to talk about this point that illegal aliens who they have hurt the most, the people group is African Americans, because so much of the dollars have gone to help education, incarceration, hospitalization, free services for illegals. When our own kids in the ghetto cannot read or write, no, we take care of Americans first. Whether they be black, white, Latino, Asian, those are the people that get the
Rosanna and Steve, hang on a second. I want to bring Julia into the conversation. Julia, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a false dichotomy that you're trying to draw, Rosanna. It's not like we're gonna take, let's just imagine that we just booted every illegal immigrant tomorrow, right? You got your wish, wave a magic wand, boom, they're all gone. And and first of all, you're grossly inflating the amount of federal dollars that go to undocumented immigrants in the first place. But putting that aside, let's just stipulate that the amount of money that you think is spent it's not like the federal government is going to suddenly reappropriate those dollars and put them towards poor black people in the ghetto and or to veterans. That's crazy. Of course, we need to give more money to veterans, but the reason that veterans are not getting enough money is not because too much money is going to undocumented immigrants. The federal government just gave $3 trillion to corporations as part of the CARES Act. We literally are manufacturing money. The Fed is literally manufacturing money in order to keep the airline industry afloat, in order to keep the stock market afloat. So, if you and I should be on the same side as far as being irate at that veterans don't get enough money, but the villain in this scenario is absolutely not undocumented immigrants. And to Steve's point, undocumented immigrants as a group contribute significantly more than they take. Undocumented immigrants are the Illinois and the New York of this country. As a group, you're shaking your head no, but that's just, you can't, it's a factually accurate
Julia,
statement.
would you acknowledge, however, that in some states, whether it's Nevada or California, the illegal immigration issue and the impact on their state budgets is, in many cases, out of hand? In just those, maybe it's not in all 50 states, but would you acknowledge that in some states it might be the case?
I'm not well versed on Nevada's budget issues. And there certainly is room for immigration reform in this country. Everybody agrees on that issue. The problem is that the people who are opposed to immigration are just, you've got this fetish about they broke the law, therefore, like our first caller, Heidi, they broke the law and therefore they must be punished. That's insane.
Immigrants are the backbone.
No, I do not.
We just want our laws enforced. That's all.
But you're cutting off the country's nose to spite its face. To say that we just must enforce these laws. It's a petty law. It's not like they're running around murdering. A few undocumented immigrants murder people, but a smaller percentage than people born in this country commit murders. But by saying that we got to get rid of immigrants, including undocumented immigrants, we're cutting off our noses to spite our faces. Immigrants contribute more to this country in terms of dollars, in terms of intellectual capital, than people born here do. We need them in this country. We need to figure out how to make them legal.
On that note, ladies, and the gentlemen listening, we are out of time on that particular point. Julia Klein, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Roseanne Polito, thank you for joining us. It was a lively discussion. We'll have you two back to pick this up at some point in the future. I'm Bruce DuMont. Again, in the second hour, we're going to be joined by Coco Sudek. She's a liberal. Judith Sherwin, she's a conservative. And we're also going to introduce you to Jo Jorgensen. She is the Libertarian candidate, President of the United States. All coming up in the next hour on Beyond the Beltway. Don't go away.
Welcome to the world 2116. You can fly across town in minutes, or across the globe in under an hour. Whole communities are living on Mars, and solar satellites provide Earth with unlimited clean power. In less than a century, Boeing took the world from seaplanes to space planes, across the universe and beyond. And if you thought that was amazing, you just wait.
Today, fresh fruits and vegetables will go from a field in California to a grocer in Miami. A bottle of beer from Eagle Pass will journey to a restaurant in Manhattan. A 2x4 in Oregon will find its way to a townhome in Denver. A hybrid will say goodbye to Detroit and hello to a showroom in Austin. While a steel beam will leave a mill in Illinois for a high-rise in Phoenix. And a flat screen in China will head to an electronics store in Memphis. Because today, as every day, wherever you find business, you'll find us.